Welcome. This lesson is over percent again. So let's look at our number routine. In a class of 25 students, 80% of the class turned in their homework in on time. How many students handed their homework in on time? The rest got long forms. Well, it's true. There are many ways you can solve this. You can solve it using a picture model, using a percent bar, using a table, or a proportion. What do you feel more comfortable with? Well, first of all, I'm going to start it with maybe a picture. So let me get my marker ready. So let's think 80%. Can you break 80% down to a smaller number that goes into 80% and 100%? So here's 100%, here's 0%, and in a class of 25 students, that's the total class, so that's 25 goes right there. 80% of the class turn in their time. So 80% goes right here. So several ways you could solve this. One way you could solve it is break it down into 10%. How do you break down 100% to 10%? We divide it by 10. So what is 25 divided by 10? 2.5. Now, how do you build it back up to 80%? Times it by 8. Times it by 8. And what is 2.5 times 8? 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 4 is 20. So it's 20 is the answer. 80% represent 20 students. Maybe you don't like using a percent bar. Maybe you prefer using a ratio table. So again, I always tell kids to write total right here. So it's how would you write 80% as a fraction? 80 out of 100. So the total is 100%. What is the total number of students in the class? 25. Do you see a relationship between 100 to 25? Divide by 4. Divide by 4. 80 divided by 4 is 20. Hey, that was pretty fast. But let's go back to our table again. Let me use a different marker in case you hadn't seen it. Did you notice that there was a relationship right here? How do you turn 100 to 25? Divided by 4. So 80 divided by 4 is 20. That's another way you could have done it. So today's activity, you'll be given these statements. You're going to read each problem and decide if the numbers represent part, a whole, which is the total, or percent. So you do not need to solve these. So let's read the first one. 40% of the students on a field trip to the museum loved it. If 20 students loved the museum, how many are on a field trip? So they gave us a percent. So that's given. If 20 students love the museum, is that everybody who loved the museum or part of that's part? Is that 40% of the students love the museum, which is 20% which are 20 students who love it. So that goes here. Jackie is selling admission tickets to the middle school dance. So far, she has sold 112 tickets, and her plan is to sell 320 tickets. What percent of the admission tickets has Haley sold so far? What is the total number of tickets she needs to sell? 320. So she sold part of it, which is 112, and we need another percent. In Connor's math class, 20% of students earn an A. If there are 30 students in the class, how many got an A? So they gave us the percent, which is 20. There are 30 students in the class. That's the total number of kids, so that goes right here. We need to figure out what part got an A. Last year, there were 750 students in the 7th grade class. This year, there's 625 7th graders. By what percentage did the 7th grade population change? So we don't know the percent, so the total was 750. The part of it is 625. Oh, wait, this is a little different. And this one is how much it changed. So by what percentage did the 7th grade change? So it changed by from 750 to 625. It changed by what part changed? 125. So that's 125 out of 750. At Taylor High School, 240 students said they have only one sibling. This is 8% of the school's enrollment. How many students attend Taylor High School? So 8% goes right here. 240, that's part of the school who have a sibling. Because we know Taylor High School has thousands and thousands of students, so we know it can't be the total. And 75% of students in Richard's class are 60 inches or taller. If there are 20 students in this class, that's the total number of students in the class, so it goes right here. How many students are 20, 60 inches or taller? And that is our answer. So what you're going to be doing in this activity is you're going to be given rainbow cubes. And with it, you can use it to help you answer it. If you do not want to use the rainbow cubes, if you think you can answer it without it, I am cool with that. So I'm going to use, 3 of 5 cubes are orange. So 1, 2, 3, 3 of 5. So what percent is that? So I'm going to make a table for this. So 3 out of 5. What percent are orange? How do you build this to a percent? Times 20. Remember, this represents the total. The total number of cubes are 5. So how do you build it to 100%? Times 20. So 60, 100, or 60%. So more than half of it are orange. There are 2 purple. The rest, this represents 40%. How many cubes did you start with? So let's make a table. Again, this represents the total. So how would you write 40% as a fraction? 40 out of 100. There are 2 purple. Does that 2 purple represent the total number of cubes or part of it? So it goes up here. Do you know a relationship between 40 to 2? Divide by 20. Divide by 20. So it's 2 out of 5. Because each cube represents 20%. 4 out of the 20 cubes are purple. So let's write total. How many cubes are there? 20. 4 of them are out of 20 are purple. What percent are purple? How would I build this to 100%? Times 5 times 5. 20 out of 100, which represents 20%. So I built 4 out of 20 to 100, because a percent means out of 100. There are 5 yellow cubes. This represents 25% of the cubes. How many cubes did you start with? So I'm going to make a table. This represents total. Did they tell us the total number of cubes to start? Nope, we have to figure that out. So how would you write 25% as a fraction? 25% of 100. So we don't know this. So 5 represents part of it. How do you break down 25 to 5? Divide by 5. Divide by 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 3 out of 8 cubes are yellow. What percent? So how many total cubes are there? 8. 3 of them out of 8 are yellow. So how do you build it up to 100%? There are several ways you could do it. I think this way is actually, I like this way. Some of you may not. I want to simplify this. What's half of 8? 4. What's half of 3? 1.5. Because I'd rather work with whole numbers here. How many 4s go in 100? Times 25. Times 25. So what is 25 times 1.5? 5 times 5 is 25, 32. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. It is 375. But how many numbers are behind it? 1. So it's 37.5%. And last but not least, there are 12 orange cubes. This represents 60% of the cubes. How many cubes did you start with? So how would you write 60% as a fraction? 60 out of 100. This represents total. And there's 12 orange cubes. Do we know the total? Nope, so 12 goes here. What's the relationship here? Divide by 5, divide by 5. So we started with 20. So in our last activity, there are 4 problems to work with here. Just choose which one you want to do. I'll probably assign maybe 1 or 2. You may use anything, but since this is a video, I'm going to go through all 4 of them. Mr. Joe teaches a class full of students. However, Monday, 20% or 8 students stayed home due to a cold. How many students are in my class? So we know total goes here. I'm going to use a table here. How do you write 20% as a fraction? 20 out of 100. How many students are in my class? So I don't know the total, but I know 20% are 8 students. Do you know, do you want to do a side-to-side relationship or up and down relationship? It's your choice. I'm going to do an up and down relationship here. How do you turn a 20 to 100 times 5? 8 times 5 is 40. What do you prefer a side-to-side relationship? What's half of 20? 10, 50. And I can simplify again. I divide by 10, I get 1 and 5. How do you build 1 to 8 times 8 times 8? And that's how I can calculate 40. Maybe you prefer to do this question. 16% of the boxes are painted yellow. If there are 50 boxes, how many are painted yellow? So how would you write 16% as a fraction? 16 out of 100. Remember, this represents a total. If there are 50 boxes, that's all the boxes, so it goes down here. How many are yellow? How do you break down 100 to 50? I divide it by 2, or times it by a half. 60 divided by 2 is 8 out of 50 are yellow. Maybe you prefer this question. Jeff has $300 in his bank account. He gave $60 to his friend. What percent of his bank account did he give to his friend? So how much total did he start it with? $300. He gave 60. So if I want to find a percent, it's out of 100. How do I break it down to 100? I divide it by 3 or times it by a third. So that'd be 20%. And the last example, Arnold is at the store and he saw a watch for $25. If he uses credit card, he will save 40%. How much will Arnold save? So 40% out of 100. This is the total. He saw a watch for $25. Is that the total price of the watch? Yep, that goes here. And what's the relationship between 100 to 25? Divided by 4. 40 divided 4 is 10. So he'll save $10. And that is our study of percents.